Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Insight session on composing for musicals. We have some awesome panelists with us today, and also this meeting is being recorded, so if anyone, well, it's going to be on speaker mode anyway, but I just wanted to say that as a courtesy to everyone, this meeting's being recorded. Um, so I'm Connor Cook. I am a board member for the AWFC and a composer, and I've recently gotten into musicals. It's not a historic love. So I'm excited to be talking with our panelists today. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody. I'll go alphabetically. So Alexa Borden, composer, songwriter, musician, multi-instrumentalist, also my co-composer, and just all around amazing person. Is there anything else you want to introduce yourself with?
No, I think you covered all the bases. I'm also the executive director of the AWFC.
Yes. And then next we have Bonnie Corral, composer songwriter, and also, let's see. Well, I guess everyone can just read these because if I read all these bios, actually, it might take too long. So, Bonnie, is there anything else I can introduce you with?
No, just a composer and songwriter. I compose for both film and theater, member of the AWFC, and just excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. And we have Linda, composer, writer, musician, possibly more too. And Linda, what else can we say about you?
Like you said, I'm a songwriter, musician, composer, and 6 years ago I created a musical. I wrote the book, co-wrote the book, music and lyrics for a musical called Ladyship. That was in the 2019 headlined the 2019 NIMP Festival, and now we've been licensing it and doing some things with it. But longtime musical fanatic, and sort of got sidetracked and started a band and toured all over, and then decided that I had to write the musical that was within me all along. So that's where I am today. Yes.
Wow, fantastic. Well, we'll definitely be wanting to hear more about that musical as we go on. Let's see. Let's start with the first question because this is like how most interviews and things start. I would love to hear a little bit about everybody's background in music, how you got started, how you got into composing, and then subsequently how you got involved in writing for musicals. So maybe it's easiest if we just go alphabetically again, starting with Alexa.
Sure. First of all, thanks so much, Connor, for moderating and for the AWFC for having this insight session. So the way that I first got into music writing and musicals um, probably starts with me being a really young kid. I was actually into musicals before I was into film music itself. And that starts with Disney. I was born right around the Disney Renaissance, so I came up with, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, and I've been obsessed with musicals ever since. And then when I was 12, I heard the Lord of the Rings score, and that made me completely obsessed with film scoring itself. So that's kind of my origin story. And then it's just kind of been one track since then.
Awesome. Was there a particular musical that like really lit you up and made you really excited, or was it just all of them?
Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, that's a good one. I kind of feel like Quasimodo kind of got the crap end of the stick, you know?
He did, but the score and the songs work so well together.
Yes.
It has my heart forever.
It is really good. Esmeralda is an interesting character as well. I hadn't thought about that one in a while. Cool. Okay, so next, Bonnie, let's hear about your origin story.
I've been a musician my whole life, like most of you, I'm sure. Piano, cello, in various genres. And I also was in theater as well as a kid, as a teenager. I don't acted on stage, and nowadays I prefer to be behind the scenes, creating the production, composing. But I do find that those piano skills come in handy a lot. Even last night we were in LA. We were performing two songs from one of my musicals, and I had no one to accompany, so I did. um, yeah, I've always had a love of theater, I and a love of film. And some years ago, I had an idea for a musical, and I wrote a song, just a song, and then I decided, why don't I try to build this into a whole musical? And I wrote the entire thing myself, the book, the dialogues, the lyrics, the music, and which was a huge job. And I learned so much. And it was locally produced. And we produced a concept album. We had a local production run, and I learned so much from the process. And that musical has my heart as my first attempt at a musical. Nowadays, I've found that there are a lot of playwrights out there that are looking for composers. So, tip for any of you, there's a lot of playwrights out there looking for composers or people to arrange their lyrics. So I do work for a couple clients in that respect. I compose or arrange music for their lyrics that they've written. And then also right now I'm developing a new musical of mine. I do have a co-writer this time because I realized that writing the book is not my greatest strength. And so I wanted a partner in crime. And so I do have a co-writer for this one, and we've been able to bring it in partial development to different cities. We brought it to New York, to London, and then as of last night, LA. We brought some of the music, and it's still in development. But that's a great thing about musicals is you can share them along the way. And so yeah, that's my origin story.
That is awesome. Yeah, maybe we'll have time at the end to listen to some examples of what y'all have been working on. We'll see. We'll play it by ear. Thank you, Bonnie. Linda, how about you?
Well, I have a twin sister who I co-write a lot with that we had the band, and I co-wrote the musical with her, but we have older sisters, and they pretty much played the original album soundtrack of Jesus Christ Superstar like nonstop in our house. So that was like what we knew every single word. We could sing it backwards and forwards. And to this day, it's still my favorite Andrew Lloyd Webber thing he's ever done with Tim Rice. And that because it was a rock opera sung through, you wouldn't have to see it. And so I knew that album like backwards and forwards. So that really sparked our interest in musical theater. And then we were in plays and musicals in high school. And I went to a performing arts high school as well. My sister and I were in, I think, three productions of Godspell between like church and high school and things. So Stephen Schwartz is probably my favorite composer of the genre. And then after college, we started a band, we toured around. And then when I moved to LA, still doing the music stuff with the band, then I started writing for commercials and syncing a lot of my original songs in film and TV. So that's how I got into the film and TV composing world. And then, as I mentioned before, then we decided it was time to write our musical, and then we also, like Bonnie, we wrote the book, music, and the lyrics, which is a ginormous task. However, I recommend everyone do it just to find out really how to find what are the ingredients that make up this huge layer cake that is a musical. So I think even like we joked that like it would be nice just to write the music of the musical, but we we ended up doing everything. And since then, we've done other commissions where we do just write the music or just the lyrics or things like that. But I highly recommend to really study the whole craft because you are just one part of that layer cake. And that's what I love about musicals is that they're so collaborative and you're just one part of this amazing wheel. This thing happens. So that's how I got into musicals.
Cool. Well, that's great to hear. Yeah, it just seems like there's so many skills involved. So let's see. My next question is kind of related, sort of. Do you find the composing process changes for musicals versus other mediums, like, for example, film, TV, games, ads? Um, yeah, I'm curious about that because I've never done the book or anything like that. I've done some songs for musicals, and I do feel like for me, it's different than writing film music. Uses kind of a different part of the brain to think about story and lyrics and the concept of a musical is kind of interesting because it's like people are talking, and then all of a sudden there's a song, and you have to kind of like let your suspenders of disbelief, you know, suspend. So yeah, I would love to hear y'all's thoughts about that. And you can popcorn this time if you want, like jump in when you like.
Well, I'll pop into that one. I think definitely it's knowing the story and the plot and the characters has a huge influence about what comes out. And the cool thing about musicals is that you're not really, there are certain purposes for songs in certain places, but you're also not tied to this like verse chorus thing. I mean, you can do like a recitative, you can do not a full song or like Hamilton where you're rapping or whatever. It's that's one of the really cool things about it. So I think having a close knowledge about the characters and the story really, I think for me comes first, and then writing what needs to happen at a certain point and why are they singing it rather than saying it? Like if this emotion has to really come out in a song, that's usually what guides it. And I was at a workshop with Stephen Schwartz, and he was saying that like it's that transition of like the line before they break into the song that sometimes is the most challenging because how do you do jump out of reality and just start singing? So you sort of have to like throw out that fishing line and then take it up with the music. So that's the cool challenges about us. Yeah, so it's very different for me than when I write songs for the band or commercials or whatever.
I can jump in. I really love what you said, Linda, about there's different options and just thinking about the whole picture as a whole. I think I have my husband is not a huge musicals fan for the reason of he doesn't like to suspend that disbelief. And so I think it gives me a fun high standard to try to reach. I like the example of Les Miserables. Those songs do a great job of weaving dialogue and making it so the story is happening while the song progresses. And I think a cool thing about musicals these days is it can be any genre. I feel like, or it can be any style. I feel like all styles are welcome. And if you're a film composer or come from a band or folk music, whatever you like, I think it's all welcome. And I think that while we think of musicals as you've got these standout songs that a singer has to sing, and of course we want a memorable solo, a memorable melody that we remember in our minds. I do like to think of my film scoring skills when I write for theater as well. I like to incorporate kind of cinematic textural elements in my accompaniments. I like to think of, as you all are film composers, you have to flex a score to fit picture. You have to, flex it to honor what's happening in the moment. And I think it's the same in theater. We have to stretch or flex a song, add a reprise or whatever it is, add dialogue to fit what's happening in the moment so that we're honoring what the character's feeling and we're honoring the movement of the story.
Definitely. There's like a rule in musicals where when emotion gets too big to speak, you start singing. And then when it gets too much for singing, you start dancing. That's a pretty standard, I think, in a lot of our musicals that we see. And the thing about this, when writing for musicals for me, I found that the most challenging aspect that I don't have to think about quite as much in film scoring is making sure I keep the momentum going. Like Bonnie and Linda both said, we want to keep the plot moving through the songs that we're writing. So we don't just want to like stop the plot in order to just sing a song and then resume the plot. You want to make sure that it keeps moving through. And I think that's one of the most challenging and also exciting aspects of writing for musicals that's a little bit different from film scoring.
Yeah, I never thought about that before, but that totally makes sense. Thank you all. Let's see. Here's my next question. This is more of a practical one. How early are you, the composer, typically brought on in the musical creation process? I guess this depends on if you're being hired to do the music for someone who's written the book versus doing your own thing. So feel free to jump in on that question for more practical side of things.
Well, I'll jump in. Yeah, I mean, if you're creating the book, music and lyrics, then obviously it's like before it even starts and finding a good idea or story. Um, but I've had every experience. I've had where they've are trying out a bunch of spec composer teams and saying this is like they were adapting. It's still in progress, but a movie into a musical. And so they said, well, can you write a song for this character? And this is the little hypothetical scene. So that wasn't even, the show wasn't even really done, but they wanted to see that. So that was sort of just somewhere floating in the process. Sometimes it is like they'll have the lyrics and then want you to do the music or vice versa. So I don't know that there's any like hard and fast rule of that other than just say, or if you're the composer and there's just the lyricist and you're saying, let's write a musical, go.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Depending on the project, it could be anything. Like Linda said, if you're doing your own, you start from scratch. If you're working for maybe a playwright or a librettist, you are maybe going to be asked to compose to lyrics that already exist. I've done a short film where they had already written a song and they had actually already filmed the characters singing the song, but they wanted further arrangement or composition in scoring underneath, or even an end credit song for a film. Those are always lovely to work on. I'm sure all of you have worked on songs like that. Oh, and I think too, Linda mentioned the ability to switch from writing first song and then lyrics, and then the ability to write first lyrics and then melody, which is a great skill, I think, to develop and a fun challenge.
Yeah, same here. It's really depends on where when we're hired, like what part of the stage they're in as well. So Connor and I, we both worked on musicals where they have lyrics and like some idea of what they want the songs to sound like, and they hire us to write the music for it or fill things out. And I've also been brought on later in the process where they've got melodies and chords and lyrics ready, and I've been hired to arrange or orchestrate things for them. So it's always different.
Yeah, there's so many moving parts I'm figuring out as someone who didn't grow up like into musicals that much. It's like, wow, I didn't realize there were so many different facets with the orchestration and everything else. So let's see. That question's kind of, I might come back to that one later. This one's interesting to me. How closely do you work with other creatives in musicals? Are you kind of on your own or more enmeshed with the entire creative process? Kind of like, how in games, I feel like the composer gets to work with everybody a little bit. Film, you're kind of working with the director. What's it like with musicals? I'm curious.
Well, I guess it depends. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Bonnie.
Oh, go ahead, Alexa.
Okay. I like to work really closely with everybody, but I've also I usually work really closely with whoever is working on like the lyricist or the actual director or writer of the book. And a lot of the times that continues through the process because I've in the past wound up being the musical director as well. So then I actually get to work really closely with the cast, which is always exciting. I love teaching the songs to the cast and like hearing that come to life. it's my favorite part of the entire process.
I was going to say something very similar. I didn't realize this, but working with the actors is is the most surprising joy. It's a and as you're developing a musical, there are opportunities for live performance. I think Linda might talk more about this, but as you workshop things or create demos or concept albums, you'll need performers to help, and there will be opportunities for live performance. And hearing an actor sing a song for the first time, maybe a different actor sing a song for the first time, or casting someone, it's really a special experience. I found it's like being given, it's like they give the song back to you and it's entirely new. And also it's nice to hear their input, whether it's is this song technically doable to sing? How do you feel about it? Or just the way they view the character. So that's really been a joy I found as well.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, that's still my absolute favorite part is seeing these incredible voices sing your song, something that I can like. I am not a musical theater singer, but I love hearing them sing and I would say also like anytime you have a chance to hear someone sing your song or get it up on stage and workshop it, or there's probably a college near you that has a musical theater program. Just, hire them to do a demo, just hear it through their voice, because we found out very quickly that like our romantic male lead, we're like, yeah, he's a tenor, and like we're like, ooh, we wrote way too many high notes in that, like even the best of singers. So we had to like adjust or or write a song that if someone had that range they could hit that note. If they didn't, we'd pick another note. It's just invaluable to just get it up on the stage or just in your living room or something so that you can really hear how it sounds, because there's one thing in your head and you can think that like yeah, I can hear this, Eve Noblezada singing this, but like what happens if she can't sing it? So that was like the strongest learning curve for me, was that about just hearing them come to life. But it is the absolute best joy you can have just to hear it. Absolutely 100%.
Cool. Yeah, that's a question, or not a question, that's a thought I'm having as y'all are speaking is sometimes you might have to tailor the song for the performer because if you've written it to uh if the tessitura is too wide, you might have to kind of change it for the performer. So maybe there are variations for depending on who's singing it. So let's see, we have a couple questions. Oh, Maria, thank you so much for coming. Have a great rehearsal. So good to see your name on there. Okay, and so we have a question from Amy Ward. Thank you, Amy. Do you ever work with or collaborate with other songwriters? That's a question for all three of you.
I collaborate with Connor a lot of the time.
Yeah, we collaborate most of the time, almost every day. And we do all kinds of stuff. We do a lot of songs. We're writing the musical right now. Well,
We
not
are.
right now. It's kind of on pause because we're busy with film stuff, but it's very much in the development phase. So this is actually a pretty apt inside session for now because we're in the development stage. So it'll be interesting to hear from Bonnie and Linda what your development stages look like because we're still kind of in that stage very much. I forgot what the question was. Oh yeah, sorry. Do you ever work with collab with other songwriters? I went on a tangent.
Well, I do, just because my co-writer is also my twin sister. But also, yeah, I mean, it's interesting when just because I come from the singer-songwriter world, I don't even think of a songwriter brain normally with musicals, because to me it's like a composer with the libretto, and it's just like it's a different angle that I come at it with my brain. So yeah, I mean, I've collaborated with other songwriters for sure too. It just depends on the project. Yeah.
Yeah, the same. On my current one that I'm developing with a co-writer, it's like with any collaboration, it's really nice to have someone to bounce ideas off of and someone you trust. And my co-writer has written a portion of the songs as well, and we know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And Yeah, it's nice. I was once told that a musical is like its own business. It has its own resume that builds with workshops and experience, and it's nice to have someone just have a team member and not be alone in the process.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so what is the development process like? I mean, Alexa and I have worked on a few musicals where we didn't write the lyrics, we did the music. And so the development process for that is typically like, oh, we wrote the music and then last minute they forgot to hire a music director, so we're doing it. And if you're writing the musical yourself, it seems like you probably have more time, more leeway with things. How do you develop? This is a really long-winded question, apologies, and maybe it's several questions wrapped into one. Do you find like investors? Or are you pitching to theaters or, and if this is not helpful to people, please chime in the comments with your own questions too. But I'm just curious about like, what does it really mean? Because pitching for films and things I think is different, but like curious with musicals, like who are you trying to pitch to? Or who are you trying to get involved? Sorry, that was a really
Well,
convoluted
I'll
question.
jump in for ours. I mean, someone, I don't know who said it, but they said that the average musical takes 7 years from the first page to the first stage, and that's just the first stage. And I know friends that have been working on musicals for like 12 years. I mean, a musical, it's a gigantic thing, and there's a reason why it takes long because you do need workshops and you do need to rewrite songs and takes them out and write new ones at the last minute. I mean, many Broadway shows, I know even the night before previews, they are tossing out songs and writing new ones or writing a new intro or something. So um, it's really the process is ongoing until the very, very last probably minute of opening night. So it can take, and I also like to say like a musical is a full-time job that no one pays you to do until hopefully they do. You really have to love it. You really have to love the craft. And but as far as like in our case, we wanted to create it from the ground up, and we were looking for a good story that could engage you. Because I mean, again, this is if you're going to be working on this for years, you better really love the story and what it's saying. And um, I mean, there's many great books about musical forms and all that it takes, which I recommend everyone looking into. Um, but for us, we just started writing it and just kept coming back to it. And then there was a festival, which unfortunately no longer exists post-pandemic, but we weren't even really done, and my sister submitted it without telling me. And then they called us and they're like, we think it's ready. We want to pick you to have like a full production on an off-Broadway theater. And and you have to do everything, be the producer, the orchestrator, everything. And it was total boot camp. And we didn't sleep for 3 weeks. And we had to raise your own money and do all these things. But it was the greatest like grad school because you learn everything about it. And hopefully, I mean, going forward, then yes, you do want to find producers and it's to capitalize musicals take millions of dollars and all these things. So we just, and if as much as you can focus just on the creative part and not worry about that part is the best, and really hone your skill as a great musical theater composer or writer about what you can add that's unique, but yet still, I mean, we do have to sell tickets at the end of the day. So, it's like I said, Hamilton took like a long time, and you have to see what works, do workshops, all those things. But if you love it enough and the story to keep going and getting it to this ultimate thing in your mind, that's that's hopefully you'll have that inspiration to keep going.
Cool. That 7 years tidbit is really interesting. I never heard that
Yeah,
before.
we didn't believe it at first, but like, I mean, granted, and we were kind of lucky because we had just worked on it for like 2 years before we got to that festival. But even after that festival, we still worked on it. We cut songs, we got feedback, we were flexible. I mean, that's the other thing is you have to really
Hmm,
be
yeah.
flexible. And yeah.
And one thing I really love about musicals is it seems like a choose your own adventure. I know there are composers out there who are making concept albums or even music videos, or they go the kind of traditional route that Linda mentioned. They're trying to get workshops with colleges or anything to develop and hear it. Like she said, it's always in development. Another thing I love about writing for musicals is you don't have to ask permission of anyone. If you don't have a gig, maybe you're in between film gigs, you write a musical. And you don't have to have any funding to start writing. You can start with a piano part and a voice part. You can ask someone to sing it with you. And it is a choose your own adventure in some ways, and it does take time, like Linda mentioned. But I think that's such a fun thing about it. It's almost like the Wild West in some ways.
Cool. Alexa, was there anything you wanted to add on this really lengthy question I asked?
Trying to trace back. Yeah, I for thus far I have not been involved in the finding of funding for musicals, but I do know that they take a very, very, very long time. So if you come up with a musical idea, you have to want to live with it for years. So make sure you really like it. And if you don't, like, that's the thing is there's a lot of passion in the musical world. So I'm assuming that if you're getting into writing a musical, it's because you're very passionate about it.
Yes, we all went to high school with musical theater kids. Some of us are, some of them. I'm not. I
But
wasn't.
yes, I was a musical theater kid. Bonnie, Linda, you were both musical theater kids too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little
Yeah.
bit.
It's a specific archetype. I was in musical theater, but I don't think I was a musical theater kid because I didn't really know any musicals. But
We were a
I
special
was in
crowd.
Godspell. Yeah. I just like, I didn't know what was going on, to be honest. So we do have some crowd questions, which I'm very excited about. So I'm going to start with Melissa Axel. Hi, Melissa. It's so good to see you here today. Thank you. So we've got, where do you meet or connect with librettists slash book writers? And do most of them also write or co-write lyrics, or are there opportunities to take the ideas from their script and write the lyrics to work with the composer to turn those into songs?
I know for me, I found one client on Dramatists Guild. It's kind of the one of the big guilds for playwrights, Dramatists Guild. They have a forum of people looking to help each other, whether it's looking for a lyricist or a composer. And I think another client of mine I found on a Facebook forum. There's a few out there that you can kind of search for, musical writers.
Yeah, I think all some of the festivals, like there's one, the South Carolina New Play Festival, and that's was started by a couple that I met at NYMF. That was one of the directors, and it's just meeting, like being in the place where lots of other people have things to add, whether they're actors, and usually at festivals there are actors and orchestrators and players, not just other composers. Um, there's also musicalwriters.com, which they have a huge resource of articles you can read and forums if you're wanting to connect with other people. I made a little resource list that I'm going to post later that we can send you the Google Doc link that lists like a bunch of areas where you can just reach out and find other people to collaborate with.
Thank you. That's amazing.
A lot of my connections have come through just I hate this word so much, but just networking and being at events, and just meeting people and making real connections with them. A lot of the times, if you find something that you share in common and that you're both passionate about, that sticks with people. And I've gotten a lot of connections just because I've started gushing over how much I love a certain musical, and somebody's like, I love that too. And then 6 months later, they're like, I have a friend who's working on something. Would you be interested in like connecting? And it's a really great way to just meet cool people, just go out and be at events and talk to people. And especially if you're in a place like Los Angeles or New York, just showing up at these places and presenting yourself and being able to like find things that you share in common with others. It's just a good way to A, make people connections, and B, like make possible work connections for the future.
I love that. Yeah, it's so important to be authentic in this industry because why would we want to, see a project from someone that they don't feel authentically about, Especially the musicals, since we now know it takes at least 7 years.
Not always,
Yeah.
not always.
Why fake it for 7 years,
Yeah.
No thanks. I'm good on that. So we have another question. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced your name. De Noir Henderson. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. We have, I love this question. Thanks. Also, I hear many of your journeys are difficult, but there's a way you recommend transitioning from film to musicals. Do you try to connect with book writers or working with composers who have done it before? And then also book recs. That's something we can talk about too.
Well, I would say, I mean, to me, it's like I like to do different. I have my hand in different styles, so I don't feel like I ever fully transitioned. It kind of like Bonnie was saying is a great idea. If you have downtime in between projects, like, or even just challenge yourself, like, there's also websites that the name is escaping me, but it's a free, you can look at scripts, and they have monologue sections of like what actors need to audition to. So you can find a paragraph of a monologue and they say the character, and then just challenge yourself. I'm going to write a song, like, and on the resource list that I have, but there's, if you familiarize yourself with the functions of different songs in a musical, like there's the opening number, there's the I Want song, there's the love duet, there's the 11 o'clock number, which is like the one before the finale. Find out the reasons why those are, it's not written in stone, but there's a reason why those work and that people want to um see the show, and like in the opening number you sort of pose a question, and hopefully by the finale that question is answered. And then you want to leave you also want to ask, how do I want the audience to feel when you leave the theater? Is it a comedy? Do you want them to feel happy? Do you want them to feel enthralled or better about themselves or better about life? So I think it does have to sort of start with you, and to find out about yourself as a composer, about what is it about musicals that I want to write about and explore, and just start small. Just don't start with a whole musical with 30 songs. Start with just like one little song, and then when you do meet other people, then you have that more knowledge about yourself, about what you can offer to the art form.
I love what you've said, Linda, about thinking about the whole story, and it can start with a song. That both of my musicals started with just one song and a kernel of an idea, and build from there, and are still building from there. And I also, you reminded me that just listening to musicals is very helpful to me, because it makes me think, now why am I feeling something right now when this person is saying this, or why is this song working for me as a listener? I think, the other day I was working on a big ensemble number, a big dance number, and I thought I could just write, just, kind of channel this, just make this standout dance number. But I wanted to think about the story, like what is happening, just like with spotting a film with a director, like what is happening around this, and can I weave the story through the song? So I drew little storyboard cards, like little stick figures, because I wanted to think of it in that way. And so you can kind of bring the skills you have as a film composer, and just think about this story. And like Linda said, um, it's going to have important moments, and like Alexa said, there needs to be momentum that flows, and reasons that the characters start singing.
100% agree, Linda. Thank you so much for saying, like, knowing um the points of the songs and like the different types of musical numbers, like character songs and realization and 11 o'clock and I want songs. There's nothing that is I have such a pet peeve when I watch a musical that seems to just have plopped songs into the middle, and they're not really functioning as something to give the character greater depth or to drive the plot. So I think that that is such a good piece of advice, is to know the function of the songs, and how they're going to serve your plot and your characters. Um, and along with that, the I think there was a question of book recommendations. Such good advice from Bonnie and Linda to like watch musicals. And I think the best book recommendation you can do is find musicals you like and then read the actual books, like read the script and like where how they fit the songs in, and how that transition from speaking to song start happens, and when and where it happens is so important. So reading the actual books of the musicals that you like will be so immensely helpful.
That's
Yeah,
good
just knowing I
advice.
just that's great. And just knowing yeah, like the certain types of songs. And I would say challenge yourself. It's sort of like you have to know how to write in before you can write out. Like learn about the classic. Like there's a patter song, there's certain types of songs, but then you can break out of that. And I think that's why Hamilton was so successful, is because it still hits the points of like conflicts between characters that are resolved or like these things, but the music really jumped completely out of that. And it's like we're in a post-Hamilton world now with musicals, so which is great because the craft is evolving, and I think people want new and original types of music, but I think it's good to know where they started from so that then you can just expand from them.
For sure. It's good to know the function of the song. I actually just recently learned what a patter song is from Only Murders in the Building. When
Oh,
Steve Martin, who's actually
yeah.
my favorite musical writer, he wrote
Uh-huh.
my favorite musical, which is Bright Star, which he wrote with Edie Brickell.
Yes.
I'm
Uh-huh.
obsessed with this musical. This is the musical that changed my mind about musicals. So it's all connected somehow. But anyway, that's how I learned what a patter song was, because which
Yeah.
of the Pickwick triplets did it? That's
Yes.
so hard to say. Which of the Pickwick triplets did it? So genius. I love it. I listened to it on Spotify, which is like kind of bizarre for me, listening to a patter song from a TV show where the musical is in the TV show. But Steve Martin can do anything in my book, and he's also an
Yes.
amazing banjo player. So let's see. We have a couple questions that are sort of related, and maybe we've kind of addressed them. But we have from Carol, what's the best way for a writer to find a composer to collaborate with? Um, Maybe that's connected to some of the resources Linda mentioned, and maybe what Alexa said about going to events. And then Haley Adams with a sort of related question: how do you find opportunities to workshop your musical? And I know some of you have mentioned a little bit about colleges, which is a great idea, and other things like that. Maybe we can combine those two for an answer.
Yeah,
A
I
couple.
mean, there are, unfortunately, post-pandemic, there's some of the festivals are didn't really make it. So there's NMI, there's NAMT, NAMT. I'll have these all on the resource list. But and those are festivals that you do have to go to. But as I mentioned before, musicalwriters.com, those types of things. Also, a tip is that a lot of theaters and high schools, like I know we all want to go to Broadway tomorrow, but it's getting there. Um, a lot of regional theaters and high schools, they don't have big budgets and they can't really afford to license like when the big like Les Mis or when they come up or whatever. So if you can be cheaper than MTI, which is the licensing, or Concord, which is what we did, because right now we still own all of the rights to Ladyship. So a high school in Texas found us and they said, can you they were going to do Rent, the kids Rent, or our musical, which they'd never seen before. We're like, we can be cheaper than them. And so they did license our show, and it was amazing. And high school theaters are like chef's kiss, like the purest passion of the form. And that's where I fell in love with musicals. I'm still like best friends with my friends I did musicals with in high school. So to find those other maybe more accessible places where then you can see your craft, and that's how you really learn. And so even if they can't pay you a lot, you learn so much from seeing your work on the stage sung by other people.
A couple of things I've done or tried myself was there are many awards and grants out there, which of course many people apply to. opportunities to have your work produced. But perhaps an even easier thing that you can just do without permission is last night I took two songs to an open mic venue, which was free to do. And also, I paid a little bit to have video footage to kind of build the demo reel of the musical. We brought it to New York at a well-known cabaret venue called 54 Below, which a lot of people can perform there. A lot of Broadway stars perform there as well. It's kind of like they call it the living room of Broadway, but you can find people to help you put on a cabaret or but it essentially it's a workshop. It's an opportunity to hear what you have so far. We also had a similar opportunity at a cabaret venue in London. So there's a couple ideas that I've tried.
Yeah, jumping off of those, you can, what Linda said, high schools and colleges are amazing. And as Bonnie said, like different opportunities. There's things like New Musicals Inc. That you can apply to, and usually they can help like foster some sort of um, workshop for you, or you can what Connor and I have discussed doing is crowdfunding, and then like actually renting out space to like a small stage to workshop ourselves during like Fringe Festival or something. Um, it depends on how deep you want to go into it.
Yeah, there's got to be options. I mean, people love musicals, right? I mean, people go. So let's see. Since we have 10 minutes left, I'm going to try to hit some more of these questions we have, which thank you everyone so much for all the amazing questions. This is awesome. So we have from Amy Ward, speaking of money, are most of your jobs in the musical theater world a work for hire? Do you also get royalties on the back end always?
I was
Uh,
waiting
the,
to jump in.
sorry, go ahead, Bonnie.
No, I was waiting to see if you would jump in.
Okay. So when I've been hired to do arrangements or orchestrations, that is work for hire. When I've done my own musical writing, there is no money. There is nothing there. That is just pure passion.
I think they say once you do have a show that's selling a lot of tickets, then royalties. I hear I'm not there yet, but I hear that they're nice
Yeah.
if you maintain ownership of the project.
Yeah, the funding capitalizing musicals is a whole other world. And so I would say until you get there, I wouldn't even worry about that part. I mean, just try to keep ownership as much as you can and do your due diligence and copyright your work and everything. But once it gets capitalized, it's like you need investors and qualified investors, and it's sort of like an IPO once you get to that point. So until then, I would just focus on getting it as much as you can artistically, and then when the time comes, there are a lot of people that will help you at that stage to figure out all the funding and stuff.
Cool. That's really helpful. So let's see. Going right along. Okay, Bonnie was asking about what was the website mentioned? And then a friend, Stephen Orrick, negotiated for back end royalties on Jersey Boys and did extremely well. I bet so. I bet so. Jersey Boys. That was a classic. So let's see. Rebecca Everett. How different is it composing for a live musical compared to film musicals? I've done film musicals, but not live. Oh yeah, I think that's totally different. Not from experience, I'm just guessing. Anyone want to jump in?
Definitely. I think a lot of it has to do with just the the skills of the performers too, and knowing that if they can reliably belt that high note consistently 8 shows a week, that can also, yeah, just determine you don't want to write a song that is just like impossible to sing, that only one person can sing, that has amazing, like Cynthia Erivo, I mean, she could sing anything and it would sound amazing. So think about that. And also still the biggest group of ticket buyers of Broadway are women over 35. So so we need more stories and musicals that have women's stories too, because I love Les Mis and all those things, but like I really, it's like high schools, like the way you make money other than Broadway is that it gets licensed over and over and over again to colleges and high schools and regional theaters and all that, and that can go the rest of your life. I mean, it is like, a long-term asset that will keep generating money. So you do want to have something that um, doesn't have a lot of swear words in it. I mean, we had to take a couple swear words out of our high school edition, but we didn't care. That was fine. We didn't want the principal had to go over every word of the script before they signed off on it. So which is fine with us because it's like I'd rather have the show license than be attached to like one specific swear word or something. So those are just things to think about the longevity and it lasting beyond current musical trends or things like that. Like, so those are good things to think about.
I love what you said, Linda, about timeless stories, because I think
Yeah.
there are a lot of wonderful, fun musicals that I wonder if they have a shelf life just because
Yeah.
the themes are not as timeless. And regarding live performance, it's so neat that, with film, you craft this perfect score and it's the same forever and you can revisit it and see it. But with live theater, every performance is an experience that only you and the actors and the audience will ever see that exact performance. And so it's very thrilling.
Definitely. Yeah, the film musicals, like once it's recorded, it's like Bonnie said, it's permanent. But live stage, it's alive. Like it's going to change every time. There's going to be something specific that happened in every show that is memorable. Um, and it's just kind of a living, breathing thing. So I love the live stage. There's something magic about it.
It's electric.
And
Boogie
it's
woogie
and
woogie.
it's live. I mean, it's alive. It's a direct connection with the audience. I mean, I think that's why people love seeing musicals. It really like, and it is different every night. You don't know what's going to happen. But that's what makes it so special. I just want to add, so I put the Google Doc link to that resource list in the chat so people can access it. Let
Thank
me
you
know
so
if it doesn't work.
much. That is so generous. Thank you, Linda. So I don't know if we'll get to all the questions because we only have 4 more minutes, but I'm going to try my darndest. So we have from Johnny, were there any legal or PRO aspects of writing musicals that surprised you in working on them we should be aware of coming from the TV world? Any particular things to watch out for?
Yes, I want to add to that. They taught us at the festival, don't write a musical that you don't own the intellectual property for, the IP for, which is really super important. I mean, you may want to write a musical about Elvis, but it's gonna, that's may cause problems down the line. There have been cases where, like, I know the Bridgerton musical, which was supposedly fan fiction, but I think they got into some conflicts because they used actual lines from the TV show. It's tricky. I mean, I don't, that's a tightrope. I don't know that you want to walk. So there's plenty of ideas. There's many musicals that are inspired by people like Gypsy that you don't have to use their real name and you can glean the story. And by the time the story gets to the musical, it's going to be changed. I mean, we wrote a story about a true historical event of women convicts being shipped from England to Australia in the 1700s, but we didn't use their real names. I mean, we researched real stories. We didn't use their real names. And by the time it got to the musical, it's like, it's a musical. You don't have to be 100%, like completely factual. It's a story. It's a narrative story.
Does anyone else have a PRO thought?
The only experience I had so far was that my original musical had a lot of content relating to Russia. Then shortly after I developed the album, world events happened related to Russia that were just sensitive and difficult. And so I think just be sensitive to the times of, we want to tell hard stories and we want to tell important stories. But I think just be aware of audience, be aware of what your story what messages it might give. So just with any art, yeah.
Fantastic.
I almost feel like that question for legal and PRO is like another inside session.
Yeah, it probably is.
all of itself.
Yeah, because it does become different when you're doing like film royalties versus live performance royalties through ASCAP or BMI or CSAC or whichever PRO you're in. I know it's quite different depending on the format. So I guess we can save that for another inside session. Maybe I'll do that. That'll be a dry one though. So sorry, everybody. Last thing, I thought this would be fun in our last minute. If everyone wants to chime in their favorite musical in the comments, I'm looking to try to expand my knowledge based on musicals. I'm going to put mine in there too. It's Bright Star by Steve Martin. But if everyone wants to do that, I think that'd be cool because I'm going to save this chat. Steve Martin and Edie Brickell. Yes, Wicked. I think it's Brickell. Yes, these are some good ones. Does anyone have any last closing? Well, first I want to say because people are going to be trickling out and we have like only a minute. Thank you all so much for being here, to my wonderful panelists and to every participant who came to listen. These inside sessions would be nothing without the people who come to see them. So thank you so much for donating your time today. And this has been awesome. I really wish we had more time because I still have a lot more questions. So can people email y'all with their questions? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Always happy to talk about musicals.
Yes.
Cool. These are some great recommendations, and I'm saving it right now. Thank you all. Okay, so closing thoughts. Musicals are awesome. Keep theater alive. Expand your skill set by working on a musical, even if you don't think you like them, like I didn't think I did. I actually do, because it just takes one really cool, interesting one to change your brain around. So yeah, I hope you all are doing well. Thank you so much for being here. We'll be back next month with Kath Joy and women studio runners. So that's what we're doing next month. That's going to be really cool too. So thank you all. Have a wonderful Wednesday and go musicals.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.